Itch it up, my selector.
Due to some violent content, parental discretion is advised.
I know you gonna dig this.
Happy Saturday. Good morning, everyone. This is another edition of Sucker Punch with your man, Joe Habeeb, on this channel, Ringside Reporter Live. And of course, me, Amilcar, Maestro Amilcar. We're here to talk boxing. There is a fight card that a lot of people are interested in today, happening in England, in London, at the Copper Bosch Arena. It's a rematch of a rather controversial fight that took place last year between the Romford Bull, Johnny Fisher, and Dave Allen, a seasoned heavyweight who's never really achieved what a lot of people thought he might achieve in the sport of boxing. But here we are, round number two, fight number two, and apologies for the late start, everyone. That's all on me. Joe Habeeb, talk to me about this fight and your thoughts of it before we get into some of the history and narratives that surround it.
A lot of criticism about the decision because most people that watched the fight, they believed that Johnny Fisher did get off to a quick start. Most everyone gave him the first 4 rounds. But then after the knockdown, that's when things started to change in the second half. And most people, and myself included, at the very least, in those last 5 rounds, think that Johnny Fisher, won at least 4 of them, right? So if you give Johnny Fisher one of the first 5 and you give him 4 of the last 5, he wins 5 rounds, and then you take the knockdown, and then at the very least, David Allen wins that fight by a point. Now, I thought David Allen won 6 of those 10 rounds, and you add in the knockdown. So that's like 96, 93, right? So at best, it's 95, 94 for David Allen, and you can even make the argument for 96, 93. So a lot of people have a hard time wrapping their heads around Johnny Fisher getting the decision in this fight, and just about everyone thought David Allen won. So now the question is, did Johnny Fisher start a little too fast? Did he get a little careless? And did he just get hurt? And did he get gun shy after the knockdown? Or there's a lot of questions you have to ask. But Johnny Fisher, it just seemed like after the knockdown, he got a little bit excited, right? And sometimes when a fighter gets knocked down, they say to themselves, I got to get that back. And in the process of trying to get that back, they become a little bit reckless. They take more chances, and that opens them up to get hit a little bit. So David Allen was poised throughout the whole fight, even though he was having problems out the gate. He stayed relaxed, and he stayed the course, and he said to himself, I'm going to wait this kid out. I'm going to make him get tired. My experience is going to kick in the second half, and it appeared as though it did. So Johnny Fisher is the guy that has more to prove in this rematch than David Allen, because with all due respect to David Allen, a lot of people look at him as being on the back nine, looking at, as him being the trial horse, the quote unquote journeyman. And I hate using that word, but yeah, he's usually that litmus test for up and coming fighters. And a lot of people think that Johnny Fisher did not pass that litmus test. So now the onus is on him to have to come back and right that wrong. Because sometimes even in the while it's in the record books that you won the fight, aka Devin Haney, right? A lot of people look at it as you lost, and that's how this is being portrayed here. Is that Fisher, even though he's got it in the record books as a win, most people thought he lost. So he's going into this fight as if he lost, basically, and he has to seek redemption from the public.
Well, you're right about that, Joe. And officially, Johnny Fisher did get the result there. Can you find a way scoring that fight to score it in favor of Fisher winning that fight? Can you get to that scorecard logically?
At best, you give Johnny Fisher 5 rounds in that fight,
Mm-hmm.
and because of the knockdown, he can't win. Right?
Yeah, I just don't see a way to give
You
it
give
to him.
yeah, you give Johnny Fisher every benefit of the doubt there, and you get him to 5 rounds, and even with that, he still loses by a point. So we say this many times: you could have close competitive fights, but have clear winners. Right? I thought it was clear that David Allen, at the very least, won 4 of the last 5. And like I said earlier, he won at least one of the first 5. So you can get Dave Allen to 5 rounds easily, and most people did and have. A lot of people even get him to 6, which I did. I thought David Allen won six of those 10 rounds. So I have it 96-93, right? So yeah, it's a tough ask, and you have to do a lot of mental gymnastics, at least in my opinion, to find a way to get Johnny Fisher winning that fight. And even Eddie Hearn, who's Johnny Fisher's promoter, a lot of people after the fight who are part of Johnny Fisher's team acknowledge that they think he lost the fight. Then they try to go back and watch it because they want to try to put a positive spin on it and say, oh, well, I could see this. That. No, I'm going to go with your initial reaction because it's like taking a test twice already knowing the answers. You're going to, it shouldn't count, right? So, yeah.
Yeah. So look, I am in total agreement, and that was pretty much a loaded question there from my side, Joe, because I can't find a way to get him to a win. I can't do it. I'm not able to make that math work out. There are some positive notes, I think, if you are a Johnny Fisher fan. He was very hurt. If it wasn't for the fact that I think he was such a strong A side, I think that he, I don't know if he would have seen the final bell. I mean, some referees, and we've seen this a lot in England actually, referees stopping fights earlier than I think they should be stopped. I've seen fights stopped in England for a lot less than what I saw on that Riyadh season card. Granted, it wasn't Riyadh, but it was under the auspices of the British Boxing Board of Control. He fought through a lot of adversity. He did look concussed. What we have in Johnny Fisher is a big, athletic guy with a background in rugby. He's a tough guy. He's got a good jab. Uh, he's got good balance for the most part, but he does do little things there that a less seasoned boxer is likely to do. For instance, he'll throw his jab and he'll leave it out there longer than he should, right? Um, he may not evade punches with head movement the way a more seasoned guy like Dave Allen does. Dave Allen is a guy who's been around the gyms in the UK. He's got a lot of tricks in there. He's sneaky in there. But my problem going into this rematch, Joe, and we've talked about this in the past with heavyweights, is coming into fight in shape. And looking at the weigh-in, I just don't understand. Like, this is arguably the biggest fight of Johnny Fisher's career, and I'm just not seeing that reflected in the kind of shape that he came in at.
Are you talking about Johnny Fisher or David Allen?
Sorry, Dave Allen.
Yeah,
Dave
because
Allen.
David Allen.
Sorry, thank you,
Yeah,
Joe. Dave Allen. I'm not very impressed with the level of condition, at least at first glance. Let's have a look.
Well,
Let's have a listen. I'm
before you
sorry.
go to
Go ahead,
that,
Joe.
I'm
Yeah.
sorry. I'm sorry to cut in, but before you go to that, a lot of people are saying that David Allen was just intentionally sticking out his stomach to make himself look that way. So I don't know. If you play it, we'll let the viewers be the judge, and I'll take a second look at it to
Okay,
see if
let's have
that's
a look.
inaccurate.
Let's
Yeah,
have a. I did watch this on my phone.
yeah.
On
Let's
my
see.
way
Let's see if this
on
is
my
like
way home
him.
from work. So this is the first
Yeah.
time I've actually taken a good
Let's
strong
see
look
if this
at
is a
the
little
tape.
bit of head games from David Allen trying to give Team Fisher a false sense of security going into the rematch.
Here we go.
Out of Conisbro, please welcome the Doncaster de la Hoya, Papi de la Chulo, the People's Champ, the White Rhino, Dazzling Dave Allen. And his opponent now making his way to the stage, his professional record, a perfect one. 13 fights, 13 victories, with 11 of his 13 wins coming by way of knockout. Here is the 6'5" big man fighting out of Romford, Essex, England. He is the reigning, defending, and undefeated WBA Intercontinental Heavyweight Champion, the Romford Bull, Johnny Fisher. Fisher. 265, bang on for the White Rhino. 265 for Dave Allen. 245.5 for the Romford Bull. 245.5 for Johnny Fisher.
So there you have it, Joe. You got a guy who is 6'3", I believe, weighing in at 265 pounds. A guy who's 6'5", weighing in at 245 pounds. I don't think it's really up for debate which one of these guys is more physically prepared for this fight. But let's continue to look here. Let's have a look.
This is it then, your main event tomorrow night. Was respectful at the press conference this week, but now the niceties are no more. The first fight was all action. The first fight wasn't, without big moments, without knockdowns, without controversy and much debate afterward. Tomorrow it's Chapter 2, Johnny Fisher versus Dave Allen. Live only on DAZN.
I've got to say that they're a nice pair of pants, them.
Thank you. Yeah, very impressive, aren't I?
265, the heaviest you've been in a long time, maybe ever.
Yeah.
Can we look into that at all?
Yeah, if you look, I'm in very, very good condition. I'm here to do a job, and I'm here to do it as early as possible.
33rd fight, and you've experienced an awful lot in your career. This probably, safe to say, is going to be the most hostile crowd you fought in front of. How are you going to prepare for that?
I'm 33 years of age. I've 32 pro fights. I've boxed around the world. Yeah, it's just another day at the office for me. This is the atmosphere will have no bearing on the result, in my opinion.
And how do you silence the crowd tomorrow night?
I'm coming to fight. I'm going to get going earlier this time. I've come in heavier. I'm going to get the job done inside the distance.
All the best, Dave.
Who's ready to come to the trenches with...
There you go, Joe. Thoughts?
So he's 7.5 pounds heavier than he was for the first fight, David Allen. And he just made a statement there saying he's looking to start faster. He's looking to go for the knockout. So did he come in heavier because he wants to be, in his opinion, stronger? Does he want to be more dangerous at the heavyweight, thinking that he can inflict more damage because he's bigger? That's the question that you have to ask. And a lot of times, this theory of just bigger is always better, right? Because I've said this many times, and I think you may agree with this to some degree as well. It depends on the quality of the weight, because when you're lighter, you're a little bit more explosive, you're sharper, right? The punches come off quicker, and speed in itself is power. Now, if you put on that weight and you become more ponderous, more lethargic, and you don't have that snap as you once did when you're lighter, do the punches become less effective? So I'm going to be honest with you. I don't like the extra weight.
I don't.
I think he looked better in the first fight physically. And we say this time and time again, although it is not a beauty contest, there's no benefit, in my opinion, of just putting on weight for the sake of putting on weight. And it's even like when guys go up in weight, like when Conor Ben, how much did he weigh when he fought Chris Eubank Jr.? Was it like 156? And people were saying that was too light. Well, again, that was the weight that he came in at, going through a full training camp, and apparently, obviously, he didn't probably cut calories or restrict calories as much as he would if he had to make 154, or definitely at 147. But why force feed yourself just so that scale says a certain number, right? So I've never believed in just focusing on the number as opposed to just coming in at what you normally come in at, or what you naturally come in at after a hard training camp.
Well, we've seen this many times. We've seen it with Usyk and Fury. You know, I don't think the extra weight helped Fury at all. We also saw it with Wilder in Fury. I don't think the extra weight helped Wilder. Size is an advantage when you're naturally bigger than your opponent.
Yeah.
I don't think size is an advantage when you're purposely putting on body fat for the sake of putting on body fat.
That's right.
Or even when you're putting on muscle, in the case of Wilder, just for the sake of putting on muscle. Your thoughts, Joe?
A lot of it is just psychological, thinking that I'm going to be bigger because, I'm going to be better because I'm bigger. I'm going to be more durable because I'm bigger. And the notion that, I become able to take punches better just because I'm bigger. Not necessarily. I mean, when you're at heavyweight, it's a different ball game because you're not dehydrating when you're at heavyweight, right? Your brain is not deficient in the fluid. It's not deficient in the cerebral spinal fluid. So that only comes into effect is if you're really cutting hard to make a weight at a lower weight class, right? That doesn't come into play at heavyweight for the most part. No one's killing themselves during no one's killing themselves or severely restricting fluids and nutrition, right, to come in at heavyweight. I would argue, I think there should be a weight limit at heavyweight, and that's 265, but a lot of people disagree with that. But that's just my opinion. I like how UFC does put that 265 weight limit because they remember back in the day when they didn't have weight limits, and you saw those guys come in. Look, they weren't in shape. Yeah. And the smaller guys were beating them because they were so grossly out of shape. So I think when the UFC did that, they wanted to say, we're not going to make this a circus event anymore. And I hate to say this about the sport I love, boxing, but sometimes when you look at some of these guys that come in at these ridiculous weights, it's almost farcical. It's cartoonish to me that you'll see a guy who's 6'5", 6'6", come in at 300 pounds, 280.
Martin Piccoli.
Yeah, I don't want to mention names because I don't want to be criticized for fat shaming. But, again,
Tyson
who cares?
Fury.
Yeah. Buster Douglas, another one, right?
Riddick, Big Daddy Bo.
So history has shown us that guys who come in looking sloppy tend to not do well, right? They just tend to not do well. They do better when they just come in at a lighter weight when they're better conditioned. So
one of the subplots of this rematch, Joe, and not of course it's based on the result of the first fight, is that the Fisher side has been facing a lot of criticism from the members of the UK public who, for the most part, were very pro-Fisher going into this first fight. But decisions have kind of a way, bad decisions, of impacting the fighter who, in many respects, wasn't responsible for the decision.
Yeah.
They were out there just doing what they do as fighters. And like I said, I think Johnny Fisher fought valiantly. He fought through hardship. He fought through adversity. But he got a decision he didn't deserve. And as a result of that, there are members of the British public who've really been critical. Now, we're going to go to one of those members in a moment. But before I do that, I want to go to an interview conducted by my man Gareth A. Davies with Johnny Fisher's dad. who's been a big part of his team. Let's have a look. Let's have a listen. This is Johnny Fisher's dad and Gareth A. Davies. Let's have a look. Here we go.
Come on, the Copper Bosch, the Romford Bull Army.
Yeah.
How are you doing?
I'm doing
How did you
good.
score the fight then?
I scored the fight. Johnny Fisher won by 1 round.
And I scored it, Dave Allen won by 1 round. So what's the problem?
No problem.
Exactly.
But it weren't a disgrace.
Are you John Fisher's brother?
I'm his little brother.
Are you?
Yeah.
You genuinely are his little brother?
Yeah.
So why has he had so much issue with me?
Right,
Just having an opinion. He hasn't watched the broadcast back.
You said it was a disgrace.
It was not Johnny. Let me finish.
Yeah, go on then.
Not Johnny, but the judging was
Apologies. Maybe this wasn't his father afterwards. I thought it was his father.
disgrace.
Right. So let me speak now. On the telly, what we all watched afterwards, you and Spencer was.
Spencer who?
Spencer Oliver. You and Spencer Oliver was commentating on it. For the first 3 rounds, you weren't even watching it. You was going on your phone doing what you had to do.
I was sending the scores to the Telegraph.
Correct. But the other...
I was watching it. That's not true.
But the other
That's
fight,
the first delusion.
Hamza Shiraz got beat and it
No, let's talk about Johnny Fisher and Dave Allen.
About Johnny Fisher and Dave Allen.
Hamza Shiraz lost 9 rounds to 3.
Yeah, but you didn't give as much
I
grief
did. I
as
interviewed
Johnny.
Frank Warren
Johnny's a
straight
lovely
away
guy.
afterwards
Dave's a lovely
on the
guy. We've got
broadcast.
nothing against Dave. But you went, it's a disgrace, like as if he was
The judging was a disgrace, in my view. And that's all it is.
It was a disgrace.
I love the Fishers. I think they're brilliant for boxing. I think I picked Johnny to win the second fight. I think he'll be more cautious.
Right.
I think he'll throw his jab out. I don't think he'll be reckless. I
Right.
think he'll win the 1-2s. I think he'll clinch well, and I think he'll win narrowly on points.
But why did you say it was a disgrace?
Because it was a judging disgrace.
You said,
because
he
it
won
was a
clear
clear.
1 point. A 1 point is 1 point. How can it be a clear?
Did you judge the fight
did.
while it was
I did.
happening?
I thought
Where
it was-
were you?
What do you mean? Where
Were you watching the fight?
In my house, watching it on the TV.
So you were scoring it round by round, were you?
Yes.
And how did
Round
you
by
score
round.
it?
I said Johnny won by 1 because
So talk me through the rounds then.
Johnny won 1, 2, 3, 4.
Agreed.
Dave won by
10-8.
2 points, 10-8. Johnny won 6, Dave won 7, Dave won 8, Dave won 9, Johnny won 10.
No,
In my eyes,
Dave
Johnny
won
wins by-
10.
No,
That's how I scored it.
But I scored it 1 round to Johnny, so it couldn't have been a disgrace.
But as a Fisher, you're biased.
I'm not. As you're a gad, you're biased.
To who?
You're biased. I don't know. You're biased to Dave Allen.
No, I'm not biased
You're
to
biased
Dave
to
Allen.
Dave Allen.
Why
Dave Allen,
would
he's
I
got all
be
the
biased?
experience. He's gonna school Johnny. Dave Allen's great. You might as well suck him off. Fuck off. It's unbelievable.
Well, there you go. Delusion. I hand it back to you. Look.
So there you go, Joe.
Here's the problem. Here's the problem. If somebody clearly wins 5 rounds and gets a knockdown clearly, then it's a clear decision. Just because this is the problem and the misconception, and Eddie Hearn does this all the time, and it makes me sick. I thought the scores were a bit wide. They were too wide. Eddie, it was 116 to 112. The only other way you could make it closer is 115 to 113. So how can a score be way off or too wide if it's only off by a round in the scoring? So again, just because something is clear and it doesn't take away the fact that it's competitive. So you could have a clear decision, but still be a competitive fight. And that's the only thing. And, if someone scores the 10th round for Johnny Fisher, you could argue that,
He said Gareth A. Davies is biased. No,
Yeah.
brother, you're biased.
Yeah,
I'm
like that
sorry.
10th.
You're
Dave
reaching
Allen.
to give him. You're reaching to give him that.
Yeah,
10th
Dave
round.
Allen, if you ask 100 people, 99 people are going to say Dave Allen won round 10. So if you are giving Johnny Fisher round 10, it's because you're trying to give, I hate saying this just as opinion, right? You can say, people, how can you? No, if you're giving Johnny Fisher round 10, it's because you want to give him not round 10. It's not because he earned it. It's because you want to give it to him. It's that simple. Johnny Fisher did not win round 10. And that's the only way you get him winning the fight.
Yeah, 100%. And El Pinchi, thank you for dropping a comment. He says, we need this type of boxing media in the USA. Hey, I'm here. Joe's here. What do you call us? But yeah, That was a good job by Gareth A. Davies standing on his square and defending himself and his professionalism and his scorecard.
And he's right,
Although
though.
he was holding the go for it.
He is right, though, because
Yeah.
the journalists in the UK are. I'm not saying they're not biased at all, but they're much less biased than the ones in the United States. At least the ones who do interviews, right? Sometimes when you watch a broadcast, yeah, you could see like Tony Bellew is very biased towards the fighter he likes, and he incredulously gives somebody rounds that, like for instance, he had Conor Ben up in that Chris Eubank Jr. fight after 6, and I'm like, nah. I mean, you could, at best, if you want to stretch it, you could have it even after 6, but Conor Ben was not up after 6. Most people had that fight 4-2 after 6. So
you can't trust Tony Bellew to put in an honest scorecard if a matchroom fighter is involved.
He's just too conflicted. He's too conflicted.
All right, let's have a look here at some more media here, since we were talking about that from the UK. Here we go.
Take about Dave, where he's at, and what boxing means to him.
Well, I think that's when you hear someone a fighter say that they've swallowed the fight, you're a bit taken aback. Now, Jamie's put a different spin on that.
Yeah.
I mean, he's very self-effacing. I don't know whether it's a protection mechanism, whether he's uncomfortable in the media, whether he's not one of those that like to toot his own horn. And I thought in the Fraser-Clark fight, he was poor. I thought it was a poor performance from him. And I was worried for him after the David Price fight, for a variety of different reasons. But when you listen to him, I mean, there's something refreshing about someone's honesty, about I want to go over to Saudi Arabia and I want to regain some of my respect in myself and redeem myself. Now, obviously, it's coming from a narrative of the point that he made that Jamie's contradicting. I mean, I think he won the first fight against Johnny Fisher. I'm not interested in all the background noise about whether he was too much with the hyperbole, Spencer, and whether Johnny Fisher's father's got offended by it. I think that's a load of old fanny. I couldn't care less. I think Dave Allen won the fight. And I think if there's any justice in the world, he'll go win the fight again on Saturday.
Yeah.
But I think he's an admirable young man, isn't he? I mean, I think, there are certain people that operate in the media in some ways, and there are others that operate in others. And I think sitting in the studio with him, you can't come away from anything other than what most people think about him, which is you like him and you want him to do well.
Yeah, it's hard not to like him, isn't it, Jamie?
Exactly. When he rang me, when the first fight with Johnny Fisher was, he'd agreed to it, and he rang me back and he said, "Listen, Eddie said that the terms are you take this fight serious and you get a good trainer. Will you work with the fight?" And I was like, "Of course I will." Like, it's not even a question because he's such a nice, beautiful guy, and I know I see the potential in him from a boxing point of view, and he's applied himself so well to this, especially considering it was Christmas time, and I know he beats himself up, I'll put a bit of weight on and stuff, but the way he applied himself...
Is he better prepared this time? Even better prepared, Jamie?
Absolutely. I said last time, I think he was about 60% of his potential last time, and with all my fighters to talk about having the base, if you come with me with a good solid base, then we can sort of get that point of peaking higher, and he came to me with a much better base this time.
And you've done that with a lot of fighters.
So if that's true, Joe, why is he so much heavier than he was in the first fight? This is the part that I don't understand. Like, they had a better camp. He came in with a better base, but
again, and again, this is opinion. People could say I don't agree with you, B, but I don't see how you come to this conclusion. But here's the thing: he seemed happy enough with the first fight where he wasn't even really overly enthusiastic about getting the rematch in the first place when he was asked after the fight, right? He was like, "Oh, well, I don't need it. I'm not really thinking about that right now." He's very non-committal, whereas Johnny Fisher said he wanted to do it right away. So when you got somebody who isn't really enthused and comes across, at least to me, as not really wanting to fight Johnny Fisher again, feeling happy with what he already did. Whenever you rest on your laurels in anything, and there's no motivation for you to continue on with whatever you're doing, regardless of whatever the field is or the job or the career or anything, if your heart's not in it, if you're not a 100% focused and it's not and committed to doing something, and you're just going through the motions, then that's going to reflect in your preparation. It's going to reflect in your performance. and it's going to show up on fight night. So I would argue that maybe he was, just convinced into taking this fight, pushed into taking this fight. Obviously, the money is much better the second time around based off the performance and the way that fight played out. People want to see it again, so it's going to garner more attention, more revenue. So, yeah, maybe he's just taking this fight for all the wrong reasons, and that's why you saw him show up the way he showed up at that weigh-in. That's indicative of how his conditioning, at least from a aesthetic standpoint, looked. Right? He did not look like he was in the best shape. He did not look like he looked in the first fight. His stomach was not sticking out like that. So that's something we're gonna have to think about. And I am going to pick Johnny Fisher in the rematch, and that's one reason why. But also, I think some Gareth A. Davis made some good points. He got hurt and he fought off adrenaline off of that, in my opinion. And I think he'll be a little bit more methodical, more reserved. He'll try to fight at a different tempo. He won't throw all caution into the wind. He'll have to pace himself a little bit better. And I think he realizes that. I believe that Johnny Fisher's disciplined of enough of a person mentally, because I do believe he comes across as a guy who's very hungry. He's a guy who wants to excel in his career. He wants to get better. I think he puts in the work in the gym. And I think he's at a different stage of his career right now, with all due respect, than David Allen is with him. And David Allen's going to make a lot of money. This could be David Allen's last fight. Yeah. Because he may take the money he makes in this fight and say, I've had enough.
There's another thing too that I think is worthwhile mentioning as it relates to Johnny Fisher. You said all of the things that he's doing, and I agree with the work in the gym, everything else. I also think that he's very interested in pleasing his fans and in fighting in a fan-friendly style and in being in entertaining fights that are appealing to the fans. We see that in his style. We see that in the fact that he goes out in his community in Romford and sells tickets there and engages with the public. And like
he's
I
passionate.
said earlier, and
he's
you
a
just said, he
passionate
fought
individual.
with passion in that first fight.
He's a passionate individual.
He didn't go down easy. So there's that. Let me ask you this: where do you rank Johnny Fisher as it relates to the UK heavyweight prospects? You got Moses Itama, you've got David Adelaide, you've got other guys over there. Where do you kind of rank him, especially with those two names I just gave you, Adelaide and Moses Itama?
I think he's better than Adelaide. Moses Itamu is a different animal altogether, man. That guy has just got freakish power, just freakish ability. I don't think he's at that level, but Johnny Fisher he in his own right is an athletic guy himself. He's very explosive, and he showed a lot of heart, and not only heart in that fight with David Allen, but when you're as hurt as he was after getting knocked down and being able to still fight on, and he was just fighting off of courage, but you still have to have the conditioning in order for your courage to be utilized, right? If you don't have the conditioning, then your body's going to shut down on you, regardless of what your brain wants to do, regardless of how much heart you have. If you're not physically conditioned, like Johnny Fisher seems to me like the guy who can just go to the gym and just train all day and not get tired, right? And that was why he got hurt in that fight. He looked like you could argue a lot of other fighters may not have finished that fight, but because he was in such great condition, he was able to finish that fight and not have to give up or give in or shut down. And that I would have to attribute to hard work in the gym.
Yeah, I would also attribute it to his background as an athlete. Even before he got into boxing, he was a rugby player. And, rugby is often compared to gridiron football, tackle football.
It's a very
here in the
physical
United
sport,
States.
yeah.
But the big difference between rugby and tackle football, gridiron football, is that players play both sides. So they have to go offense and defense. They play the entire match. Whereas in gridiron football, tackle football over here, most of the time you're on offense, then you go off while the defensive team comes in, and then you go back on.
Very little rest. And I'm
Very little.
sure he trains at the gym like that,
Oh, yeah.
where he just pushes himself and has very little downtime in between rounds. He probably cuts the rest period down to 30 seconds. I've seen Mickey Ward do that. Like I've seen Mickey Ward, I was blessed to be able to see Mickey Ward. He came to the Somerville boxing gym that I used to train at many, 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 many years ago, decades ago. And I just watched him train. And he would just go from bag to bag to bag to bag. And when the bell went off, he didn't take the rest period. He just went back in. And that's why he was able to be as durable as he was, because he could take so much punishment because of his conditioning. That guy just kept going. He did a lot of circuit training. And when he sparred, he did not take the minute. He would say, I only want the 30 seconds. So things like that in the gym help you if you're able to be able to utilize that stuff in the gym. If you could deal with that type of training and get adapted and adjusted to it, then that's going to translate into the fight. It's definitely going to translate into the fight. And we saw with Mickey Ward when he'd be behind in fights, he'd be getting beat up, and everyone would be like, he's done. But he still had the toughness, the intestinal fortitude to just continue on and land that big shot. And that's why he was the fighter he was, because he had not only the heart, but he had the conditioning to match the heart.
So I've pulled up some odds here, Joe. They are in the UK format of odds, so
I can break it down for you.
Yeah, so bear with me. We've got Fisher to win 2-5, Allen to win 2-1. The draw is 16-1. Fisher to win on points or by decision 7-4. Fisher to win by knockout or technical knockout 7-4. Allen to win on points or by decision 9-2. Allen to win by knockout or technical knockout 9-2. I'll let you think about those for a
yeah.
minute.
So essentially,
one second, Joe. We got to do this the right way. Hold on. All right, beating the odds with Beeb. Go for it, Joe.
So essentially, Johnny Fisher is a minus 250, meaning he's a 2.5-1 favorite. What is the odds on Johnny Fisher by decision?
Let me pull that up here. Fisher to win by points or decision 7-4.
7-4. Okay. So
Fisher to win by knockout or technical knockout, also interesting, 7-4. So
yeah, that's very interesting. So 7-4 is like he's a plus 175 to win by decision and a plus 175 to win by knockout. So what the odds are telling you is he's going to win, but they give him an equal chance to win by decision and knockout. If it was me, I don't think there's any quitting David Allen. I would actually take Johnny Fisher at the plus 175 by decision, because it's a 10-round fight, right?
Yep.
So he doesn't have, he has less time to get that knockout, right? And the only caveat I have there is David Allen's mindset, because I don't think that he's got both feet in on this one. I think he's got one foot out based on his conditioning and based on the way he talked after the first fight, where he's just happy. He was just happy to put on that performance, and like I said, it wasn't overly enthusiastic about the rematch. So that's the one caveat. You could say, well, it's like that analogy I used last week. He's like that cop that's 6 months away from his pension. Does he really want to chase that purse snatcher, or does he tell his partner who's 10 years younger, you go chase that person? So if Dave Allen is that far gone, right, then he may just see, that's not in his makeup though. So yeah,
I'll tell you what's in his makeup probably, Joe. Despite what Jamie Moore, his trainer, was saying there on Talk Sport earlier, I think he's just like, listen, I hurt him badly the first fight. I don't really want to go 10 rounds this time. I'm going to put on weight and I'm going to try to get him up out of there in 3 or 4 rounds. I don't see any other way that he's approaching the fight.
The mentality is that I have to get him out of there now, probably.
I'm not
or I
waiting
won't.
on the scorecard, so
Yeah.
I train for a 10-round fight here.
Yeah,
I'm going to
yeah.
put on weight. I'm going to
Yeah.
end this fight early.
Yeah.
And I'm just going to go for it because I'm not winning a 10-round decision. So why the hell would I train for it? That's the only way I can rationalize the weight gain.
Correct, but the caveat to that would be: does he get reckless? Does he overexert himself, overextend on a punch and get countered? And does he get tired because he's trying so hard for the knockout? Or you could argue Johnny Fisher got hurt in the first fight, so he's not going to be as aggressive either. So I think the plus 175 here, I feel comfortable with that one. I think Johnny Fisher will be, like I said, a little bit more measured in this fight. He'll fight, he'll pace himself a little bit better. And I think because of that, you may have Johnny Fisher just winning a clear, close decision. Like Gareth said, Johnny Fisher could win maybe 6-4, 7-3 here. So I think what he'll do is he'll use his jab a lot more. He'll fight on the outside a lot more. And then when the fight does get in the clinches, like as Dick Gareth said, I thought Gareth broke it down pretty good, pretty well. I think that he'll try to freeze the action when David Allen's up close and not let David Allen move his hands and throw those haymakers, those winging shots, like when he's up close, those shots that you can't really see. Because sometimes you'll see a guy, even though he's inside, he'll just throw like a kind of like a short, like what Maidana used to do with those haymaker shots. They weren't really, from a distance, but he'd throw almost like a hammer fist up close. David Allen's a little bit unorthodox sometimes with the way he throws his punches, similar to Maidana when he's up close. So I think what Johnny Fisher will do is he'll probably wrap him up, not give him the room and space to be able to squeeze those shots off like that. So I think Johnny Fisher will try to keep the fight long when he can, and when it does get close, I think he'll grab and he'll hold David Allen, lean on him a little bit, and try to freeze the action and just wait out those moments and have the ref break them, and that'll eat away at the clock, right? So this fight, I would suspect, may not be as exciting as the first fight, in my opinion. I think it may just be a totally different fight altogether.
It might be exciting for the first 3 or 4 rounds.
Yeah, but once David Allen starts getting a little bit tired,
gassed and tired because of the weight,
he may slow down, and Johnny Fisher may say, I'm going to go on cruise control, and I'll just win this fight on points. Why put myself in harm's danger?
Yeah.
Harm's way.
Louis 4554 says Fisher unanimous decision. Allen's not taking any weight off. I'd be surprised, to be honest, if Fisher gets a KO, but actually I wouldn't be. I don't know because of the weight. The weight is the issue.
Wouldn't be shocked, but I still think the plus 175 by decision is a solid bet.
I think if it is a stoppage, it would be more like a TKO fatigue stoppage against the ropes.
Correct.
As opposed to like an outright cold clock knockout type of win.
I agree.
You know what I mean? Unfortunately, there's not much that's going to be interesting to people on the undercard, Joe. There's Kieran Conway against Jerome Warburton for the vacant British middleweight title. Shannon Ryan versus Farah El Busairi, women's super flyweight. George Liddard versus Aaron Sutton, middleweight. Jimmy Sains versus Gideon Oyenani, middleweight. John Hedges versus Nathan Corliss, cruiserweight. Taylor Bevan versus Juan Cruz Cachero, super middleweight. And Emmanuel Buttigieg, maybe related to Pete Buttigieg, I don't know, against Novak Radulovic. I think that kind of speaks to what we're going to be expecting for some of these more domestic cards moving forward, Joe, because it seems like a lot of the big names make it onto these Riyadh season cards and these Ring Magazine cards. What do you think? Is this what we're going to be seeing more of in terms of the domestic matchroom shows?
Yeah, you again, like realistically speaking, not every fight is going to be a super fight. And what these domestic level fights, what you get in the UK is there's a difference in these domestic level fights in the UK because you get these action packed fights, right? Remember, like Cheeseman, he was a guy that would always put it all out there. You know, you see a lot of these guys, even David Allen. You know, these types of domestic level fights, even though they're not super fights, they still deliver in terms of entertainment value, right? Because in the UK, there's a lot of national pride, right? So when these guys are fighting for European titles, British titles, they have a sense of patriotism. They really want to win. They want to represent the country, you know, and it's for bragging rights. So because of that, you do see these guys really go out there and put it all on the line. So, yeah, I think even though these are considered quote unquote domestic level fights, this is a domestic level fight, right? David Adelaide versus Fabio Wardley, another domestic level fight, right? Fabio Wardley versus who was the guy that he had two
Fraser
fights
Clark.
with? Fraser Clark. I don't know why I drew a blank there. Thank you.
Fine.
That's another domestic level fight. But because of the national pride on the line, wanting to be the best. See, it means something.
We're missing that over here.
It means something being the best fighter in Great Britain or in the UK. No one cares about being the best fighter in America, right? They just want to be world champion. They want to have a belt and they want to make a lot of money. But these guys obviously want to make a lot of money. But there is a high degree of patriotism, nationalism, of being able to say, yes, I'm the best fighter in Great Britain. And again, as you said, we don't have that here in America.
No,
we don't.
The last heavyweight from the United States that I remember being super like stoked and happy that he won the WBC Continentals Americas Championship was Jameel McCline. Do you remember when he won that? It was like he won the Super Bowl.
Yeah, because that British title, that British title, that European title, what is it, the Commonwealth title, whatever.
Yeah.
Those belts, they look like collector's items, don't they? The way they have such prestige to them, right?
Yes.
And winning one of those obviously is not the same as a world title, but it's up there.
It's
right?
ahead. It's ahead of a WBA Continentals America. Or
It's ahead of
Continentals
the
America,
WBA gold belt or the WBC diamond belt. Like no one cares about that stuff.
No.
But these belts have a lot of history. These are this is the Marquess of Queensberry rules, Great Britain, right? These belts are that they're that old. The Lonsdale belt, like all these belts have a lot of rich history to them.
No, the belt precedes the flag, El Pinchi. Okay, so I understand the whole thing about the flag, but rainbows were around way before that flag, so, as was this belt. So I wouldn't equate, I wouldn't make that.
They claimed the rainbow, but they didn't have the copyright on the rainbow, so to speak.
I grew up reading Rainbow. Do you remember that show?
Yes.
I mean, there's nothing wrong with rainbows, guys.
Yeah, they hijacked that. Well, I gotta shut up.
We'll just leave it. We'll
leave it at that. Gonna stop before we go on a tangent.
Anything else to add to this one, Joe?
Not necessarily. I think we kind of nailed this down. The big question mark here is not if Johnny Fisher is going to win, but how he's going to win. That's the thing. Because we saw.
I don't have any question marks about the first fight. I know what I saw. My scorecard is exactly the same as yours. I have no disagreement with Gareth Davies there. People in the Fisher camp want to say they think Johnny won. What do you call that? Being in the 5% of an argument?
When you're in a 90-10, 80-20 issue.
Yeah.
If you're in that overwhelming minority, not overwhelming majority. If you're in the overwhelming minority, you're not going to convince. If you're 20%, you're not going to sway enough people at 80% to say. So just you can hold your position, but you're going to have a hard time convincing the 80%. So this is like, to me, I'm going to make a comparison. There's parallels in this fight to the Ben Whitaker Liam Cameron fight, where a lot of people looked at Ben Whitaker and they were writing him off, trashing him. And I think Johnny Fisher may not win as dynamically, obviously, as Ben Whitaker did.
Yeah.
But he'll win impressively enough where he'll probably erase all of the criticism and the doubts that he had thrust upon him from that first fight. So this is going to be a similar situation where Ben Whitaker came out of that looking like a star and erased all of the negativity. I think Johnny Fisher, once again, will do the same thing. And you heard Gareth A. Davis and you heard Simon Jordan say that David Allen's a very likable guy, which I agree. I don't begrudge him at all. I think he is a very likable guy. But so is Johnny Fisher. Like, as you said, and I think you made a beautiful point. You said it perfectly. Why is Johnny Fisher getting blamed for what the judges did? Right? And I know what happens. It just happens, right? Just happens. Like it happened with Canelo a lot. Like when he get close decisions, people develop a resentment towards him. I understand it, but Canelo's not scoring the fight. Neither is Johnny Fisher. So, and Johnny Fisher didn't act like it. He didn't say anything derogatory about David Allen after the fight. He was very critical of his own performance after the fight. It wasn't like he wasn't going out there like some fighters do after a performance like that and saying, "Oh, I won the fight 8-2." He wasn't coming off that way. So I don't. People have a right to feel the way they want to feel, do what they want to do, have their own opinions. But for me, I'm on the total opposite end of that. If you're going to be highly,
I don't blame Dave Allen, and I don't I don't blame Johnny Fisher for what happened. I don't dislike Johnny Fisher because of what happened.
Yeah,
I don't think
like with Tio, when Tio and his dad,
that was totally different. Josh
Taylor, try to say that they won and they beat the Cambosis fight. Oh, we won that fight 10-2. Then you take a look and you're like, nah, man, like what's going on here? That's a little over the top. So, I don't think, this is that. You know what I mean? So that's why I don't have the same, the same opinion as many others do. Simon Jordan is talking about, Johnny Fisher and his team, like they're horrible people because of what the judges did. Like that's not right.
No,
they were colluding with the judges or something. Like that's not. I don't see that. But once again, Simon Jordan has to stir up controversy. He has to create conflict because he's a controversy merchant, and that's what he does. He's a clickbaiter, and that's
what he's paid to do.
That's what he's paid to do.
By the looks of it. So you're looking forward to a good fight. I'm looking forward to a good fight. I'm also looking forward to tomorrow night, 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific time. Eric, of course, Joe is going to, of course, be reviewing the show with Eric Loda on the flagship show on this channel, Ringside Reporter Live, 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific, 11 p.m. if you're out there in the UK. So make sure you also tune in to the follow-up review and analysis of this fight tomorrow, Sunday, because they're going to be reviewing this along with other things in the sport of boxing. Make sure you hit the like button. Make sure you hit the subscribe button here today for Sucker Punch, and make sure you hit that notification bell so you know every time Joe Habeeb goes live. Go for it, Joe.
Yeah, we should have a pretty good show tomorrow, and this is a good fight, and hopefully it is as exciting as the first fight. But I'm a little bit doubtful that it will be given the circumstances, but we'll see. So
I agree 100%. Anything else to add, Joe?
Nope, all set.
All right, thank you, everyone. Tune in to us next time, and tune in here tomorrow night. Thank you, everyone, and we'll see you in a moment. Thank you.